When the royal family, Hollywood, and the elites are all wearing similar red shoes, we start to notice. But what does it mean? Follow me down the rabbit hole to find out. Hello, friends, and welcome back to The Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we are talking about the Red Shoe Club. So if you don't like topics involving children and potentially harming them, then this episode is definitely not for you. But before we get into it, I love to thank our sponsors. So thank you, Wise Wolf Gold, for sponsoring both my podcasts. Guys, if you want gold and silver delivered straight to your front door for as little as $50 a month, go to rabbithole.gold right now. On that same note, you can watch my episodes now on YouTube and on Rumble. You can get the episodes a week early and ad-free on Patreon, and you can buy a shirt that says The Rabbit Hole or Cult Chronicles through my merch store, which is all linked in the show notes. Thank you, Michaela, David, Ryan, and Tiffany for requesting this episode. It was a tough one, but here we are. Let's do it. Red shoes go way back in history. I can't tell you how far back because there doesn't seem to be like an exact date as to when red shoes became a popular option, but I know that the Pope has been wearing them for thousands of years. And in fact, the Pope has two different types of red shoes. So they have red silk slippers that they wear inside the Vatican, and then the red leather shoes that they wear outside. They did used to have these sandals to celebrate Mass, but they stopped wearing these specific types of sandals in 1969. These red leather shoes, along with the cap, mozzetta, and cloak, are the only remnants of the former red color of the papal garments. The papal color changed to white under Pope Pius V, who was the Pope from 1566 to 1572. Red symbolized both the worldly authority of the Pope and the Passion of Christ. It also symbolized the Pope's submission to Christ, the love of God for humanity, and the remembrance of all the martyrs who gave their lives for Christ. And in fact, many popes have actually been buried in their red shoes. But it wasn't just the Pope who wore red shoes. Red shoes were worn by pre-Roman kings. They were associated with power both in the church with the Pope and out of the church with the kings. This was also a status symbol because the red, which they called royal purple, was a costly dye obtained from rare sea snails. Although in one of my sources, I saw that it was obtained from insects from Mexico. Either way, hard to obtain. Roman emperors continued with the tradition of red shoes indicating high status, as well as aristocrats wearing them to show their status. In 1845, Hans Christian Andersen wrote a fairy tale called The Red Shoes. This story talked about Karen, a poor girl who, after her mother's death, was adopted by an elderly blind woman. One day, Karen sees a princess wearing red shoes and becomes obsessed. She wants a pair for herself. So she convinces her adoptive mom to buy her a pair of these shoes. Mind you, this adoptive mom is blind, so she can't see what color these shoes are. Against the orders of the clergy in her church, Karen wears them for her confirmation and her communion. The community did not like that she was wearing these red shoes. Then the shoes started to make her dance, and she was completely unable to stop. Like, the shoes were dancing, and she was not dancing. Like, she was just doing what the shoes were forcing her to do. Like, they had almost, like, taken on a life of their own. They end up taking her into the woods where she gets like all scratched up. She gets hurt. She's like not having a good time anymore. And then eventually, exhausted and bloody, Karen shows up at the front door of the town executioner. As punishment for her sins, she asks him to cut off her feet with the shoes on them instead of her head because he's an executioner. Typically, the head goes. This time, the feet gotta go. As soon as he does this, the shoes with the feet still in them fly away. So then this begs the question, like, was this story showing us that these red shoes make us do things we never would usually? So that brings us to modern day. Today, Pope Francis does not wear red shoes, but instead he wears black shoes. And he's actually the first pope to wear black shoes. All the other popes have worn red shoes. However, it seems like red shoes are still a sign of power and status. We often see very powerful people wearing red shoes. And I'm talking like celebrities, politicians, influential people, elites, lots of people wearing red shoes. And when I say elites, I'm talking about the people behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see all the time, like the puppet masters. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the history behind the color red and what red really means, what it represents. So I looked it up. Red was the first color that humans mastered, fabricated, reproduced, and broke down. It was also one of the earliest colors used by artists during the prehistoric period. So a lot of cave drawings are done in red. This could be because of blood, but when blood dries, it dries like brown. So maybe not. Throughout the Middle Ages, red had a religious significance. It was the color of blood of Christ and the fires of hell. In the Renaissance period, red colors were supposed to draw the viewer's attention to the most influential figures in a painting. Red is known to have both physiological and psychological impacts on people and has opposite associations. So it's associated with love. This includes passion, sexuality, romance, attraction, and lust. So during the season of love, or like Valentine's Day, we often see gifts being given that are red. So like red roses, balloons that are red, hearts that are red, chocolates in little red boxes, jewelry in red boxes, lots of red things. Red gives us the motivation to do our best in things that we love. It involves the expression of intense interest and enthusiasm about something, and it excites our emotions. Red conveys confidence. So like think about a girl wearing bright, bold red lipstick. But on the flip side, red is associated with power, aggression, dominance, persuasion, risk-taking, and energy. Not that energy is only associated with these things, it could be associated with passion and love as well. So compared to the rest of the colors, red provokes the most potent emotions, both healthy and unhealthy. It makes people feel dominant and powerful by boosting their self-esteem. In addition, red is a bold color, which makes one stand out from the crowd and influences the way others see them. However, because it heightens passion and confidence, it also increases aggression. Red has a physiological relationship with anger and rage. So this is where the term seeing red comes from. Red has a psychological impact on perceptions of power, status, and dominance. Exposure to red makes people feel more influential and in control. Red signals authority figures and commands respect. Red's psychological influence makes it effective for captivating audiences and persuasive messaging. So think like red backgrounds on ads and call to action boosts response rates. Cognitively, red improves performance on detail-oriented tasks, but creatively, red can undermine high-level thinking due to added anxiety and mental strain. Red elicits sensations of thrill and adventure, and it promotes risky, daring behavior psychologically by signaling excitement and danger. It triggers competitive attitudes and urgent desires to win or achieve success through its psychological links to power and dominance. But there are other couple fun facts about red. So red is actually the first color a baby sees. And red candies are said to taste the sweetest. And it's also one of the most common colors used on national flags. But let's get into the conspiracy theory. The red shoes are said to be made from human leather. This leather is acquired from child sacrifices. Now, this can be associated with adrenochrome or cannibalism or both, but they say that they acquire this human leather because they're torturing, raping, and killing children. So that's where like the adrenochrome kind of comes in, because like they're torturing and raping these children. They get the sexual desire from that. They get to drain the blood and drink the blood. They get the adrenochrome from that. And then they use the skin to make these leather shoes. Later on, and sometimes they talk about cannibalism. Most of the time, in most of the research that I did, I didn't find a lot about cannibalism. Although later on when we talk about McDonald's, we'll talk about maybe they added the extra, like all the meat and bones and stuff from the children into the hamburgers. Thinking about that makes me want to throw up, but that's part of the theory. This theory really took off when Macaulay Culkin, the child star from Home Alone, who's all grown up now, blew the whistle on the entertainment industry. So he called the Hollywood elite bloodthirsty Satanists who ritualistically murder child actors. Macaulay said he only got away from them because he was a smart and suspicious kid who got too famous to be killed. He said that he learned very early which of them wanted to abuse the kids and which ones have even darker tastes. Ugh. He continued, saying that the worst of them wear shoes made of the skin of children that they ritualistically murdered. Leather from human skin has a distinct hue to it. He was 11 and filming Home Alone 2 when he was ushered into a back room, and in this room there was a guy he described as a powerful executive type. This executive tried to get Macaulay to relax by giving him this can of Coke, and then started talking to him about the industry and tried to get him to basically like cut his parents out of the decisions, telling Macaulay Culkin that he could now be his guardian instead of his parents. And the exec offered him everything, told him that he would be the biggest teen star in history, that he could have whatever he wanted. All he needed to do was get rid of his parents. And Macaulay kept being like, dude, I'm only 11. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for all this. Like, I'm only 11. And that's when the executive kind of like started to get pretty weird. So his breathing became pretty shallow. He started like licking his lips and told Macaulay how handsome he was. He then reached into his case, pulled out a crack pipe, and put it on his lap. The whole time, just staring at this 11-year-old with lust. When Macaulay finally ran out of the room, a guy that was standing outside the room grabbed him and threw him back into the room. Then the exec lit the pipe and blew smoke into Macaulay's face before telling him to look at his shoes. That his shoes were made from the skin of children he and his friends had murdered. And that leather made from human skin is the finest leather known to man. Macaulay Culkin dropped this bombshell on a radio show interview he did in Paris, France, and the interview blew up. And media outlets were reporting on it super fast, like all over the place. But within an hour of it blowing up, all reports had completely disappeared. All of them were taken down. The executive had asked Macaulay if he knew Heather O'Rourke, alluding to the fact that his shoes were made of her. This led Macaulay to vomit on his shoes. Heather O'Rourke was best known for her role in the 1982 film Poltergeist. She went on to have a role in the show Happy Days before filming Poltergeist 2 in 1986 and Poltergeist 3 in 1988. Those are the years that it came out. Tragically, on February 1st, 1988, Heather died following 2 cardiac arrests. Her death was ruled a congenital stenosis of the intestine complicated by septic shock. She was 12 years old when she died. So Heather started experiencing intestinal inflammation a few years prior to her death, and it was later diagnosed as Crohn's disease. In January 1988, her symptoms got worse to include vomiting and abdominal pain. This led to a bowel obstruction that required emergency surgery, and the rest is history, you already know. But you know what else can lead to intestinal issues and abdominal pain and vomiting? Fear and anxiety. She was in an industry that uses and abuses kids, not just kids, adults too, but can you imagine how scary that is for a child? And she was around people that were just using her all the time. And according to an article on PubMed Central, Psychosocial factors, including a history of sexual and/or physical abuse, are associated with IBS and contribute to its adverse outcome. Epidemiological studies show a high prevalence of abuse history among female patients in referral gastrointestinal clinics, regardless of the diagnosis, and particularly in referred patients with more severe IBS. Sexual and/or physical abuse is reported in up to 50% of IBS patients seen in this setting, which is a higher prevalence than seen in any general population or in patients with organic gastrointestinal disorders. Furthermore, we have previously reported that a history of abuse is associated with greater pain reporting, greater psychological distress, poorer health status, and poorer outcome in patients with IBS. The real story of Heather O'Rourke's death is terrible. She was allegedly raped to death. Her death actually got me wondering about other child actors, so I went down that rabbit hole a little bit. River Phoenix, who was known for his work in movies like Stand By Me, Explorers, and Running on Empty, he famously collapsed outside the club The Viper Room and died of a lethal mix of illicit substances. He was only 23 years old. Brad Renfro, known for the thriller The Client, although he was in over 20 other films, he died of accidental overdose. He was only 25. Jonathan Brandis, known for his role in The Neverending Story 2, as well as Ladybugs and Sidekicks. He took his own life at his home in 2003. He was only 27. Sawyer Sweeten starred as Ray Romano's son in the show Everybody Loves Raymond. He took his life when he was 19. Dana Plato, from the show Different Strokes, overdosed on prescription medication. She was 34. Ashley Aston Moore, who starred in Now and Then, died of an accidental overdose at the age of 26. Cameron Boyce, who was a well-known Disney Channel star, as well as starring in Grown Ups and Grown Ups 2, died in his sleep due to a seizure. He was 20. Bridget Anderson from Savannah Smiles died of an accidental overdose when she was 21. Lee Thompson Young, who was known for playing Jet on the Disney Channel show Famous Jet Jackson, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 29. Christopher Petit, known for his role in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, died of an accidental overdose at 24 years old. Corey Haim, who was best known for his roles in The Lost Boys and Dream a Little Dream. He was also known as one of the two Coreys, as they were dubbed by the media, with Corey Feldman being the other Corey. Corey Haim fought with the industry, and he actually had come out about alleged sexual abuse he endured, but he also dealt with a drug problem, and he died at 38 from complications caused by pneumonia. I've covered other conspiracies that have deaths similar to these, and there's like a number of conspiracies I haven't covered that have very similar deaths as well. But we all know that drug overdoses can be faked, as well as suicides. And if they're not faked, it leads to the question, like, who's introducing drugs to these children? And in some cases, as we've seen in Macaulay's case, and why so many have turned to drugs. I know that a lot of people turn to drugs to try to numb themselves after they felt incredible trauma or pain in their life. So why are so many actors and actresses turning to drugs? And not just child actors and actresses. I mean, adult actors and actresses also turn to drugs very frequently. But let's get into the connections to this club that we are being shown. So first, we are being shown some of their secret rituals, one of which is the black eye. We have seen a disturbing amount of prominent people walking around with their left eye bruised. And it's always the left eye, never the right eye. And not only that, but the amount of prominent people that are being photographed covering their left eye is also strange. Like on magazine covers or album covers or just like in their modeling, they're always covering their left eye. It's very odd. But whenever people are asked about why their eye is bruised, they always have what most would consider a reasonable explanation. But How often in real life do we see people with black eyes? There aren't just people like walking around with black eyes. Like, when was the last time you got a black eye? Think about that. Like, unless you're out doing something stupid, like you fight for a living or you're racing dirt bikes or you got into a car accident, you don't just like walk around with black eyes. But the frequency at which this is happening is crazy. So I wrote out a short list. It's not a full comprehensive list of all the people to kind of give you an idea of the people that we've seen with black eyes. So like George W. Bush, Pope Francis, John McCain, John Kerry, Prince Philip, Harry Reid, Boy George, Prince Andrew, which we know that he was on the Epstein list. Prince Andrew's awful. Jennifer Lopez, Adam Sandler, David Bowie, Pierce Brosnan, Robert Downey Jr., Richard Branson, Kanye West, Reese Witherspoon, Ryan Gosling, Madonna, Obama, and Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband. The list goes on and on and on. I just named a few people to kind of give you like an understanding of how broad this goes, because it's the royal family, it's the elites, it's politicians, it's the Pope, it's Hollywood, it's everybody. And the thing that gets me is that nobody actually tries to cover up their black eye. They like wear it out with pride. There are many reasons circulating as to why they may have a black eye. Mostly, people think it's an initiation ritual. And maybe they don't cover it up because not everyone is like that's in the club is there when this happens. So they're like kind of showing it off. Or maybe it's required that they are seen out and about with the black eye. Because conveniently, the paparazzi always seems to get a photo, or they have an interview within a couple days of getting this black eye. Something happens to where they are photographed with this black eye. So it makes you wonder, like, is that part of the ritual as well? I mean, we've talked about the left eye in other episodes as well. The most common thought is that this is an initiation into the Illuminati. However, Roseanne Barr explained the Black Eye Club, calling it the Satan Club. They say you can only wear red shoes after you have been initiated into this club. And then it makes you wonder, like, why are they walking on a red carpet? Why not a blue carpet or a gold carpet or a black carpet? Well, the red signifies the blood that they have spilt. And not only that, but on the red carpet, they are asked, who are you wearing? Not who made your dress, not what designer designed this for you, but who are you wearing? There are also rumors on the internet that there are hunting parties where they set people or kids free into the woods and then they play the most dangerous game, where they go and find people and shoot them. Which is honestly probably where that book and story comes from, is that it's actually happening. In all the rumors that I saw on the internet, it's always happening overseas, like in Europe somewhere. One of them said the Netherlands. Another one said in the UK, although I wouldn't be surprised if it was also happening in the US. Either way, the idea is that they're having like more fun hunting humans versus hunting animals. And then they get to take them back because now they've tormented them, they've terrorized them. Now they get to drain their blood, get the adrenochrome, and they get to wear the red shoes. It's like so sick and twisted. God. Anyway, I found some pretty interesting things. So firstly, before I start every episode, or how I start every episode, like the research into an episode, I just Google it. I think I've told you guys this before. I just put it into Google, see what pops up. It's kind of like a fun game for me. Guess what happened? I put it into Google. I put Red Shoe Club, enter. I use Brave. It doesn't matter. The Ronald McDonald House popped up. I was like, that's kind of interesting. That's odd. Why did that happen? So they actually have a program called the Red Shoe Society. According to their website, the Red Shoe Society is a group of young professionals with a collective goal to help make a difference in the lives of families with seriously ill children receiving treatment at a nearby medical facility. As stewards of the Los Angeles Ronald McDonald House, Red Shoe Society members work together to raise money, volunteer their time and talents, and network with other active community members. Red shoes are not the only thing to make society members stand out. Red Shoe Society members are leaders. Being a society member means you are the type of person who wants to lend your talents to touch others. We already know that McDonald's is luring kids in. Outside of the Ronald McDonald House, which I think is a fantastic option for families to use when their child is terminally ill or critically ill, that they need to be near the hospital, I think that's an awesome option. I think that McDonald's is doing some really shady things, though. And we can go down a full rabbit hole of McDonald's. That's not really about like this episode. We are going to get into a few things with McDonald's, but we're not going down the full McDonald's rabbit hole today. Although it is convenient that clowns wear big red shoes, and the mascot for McDonald's is a clown. But not just a clown that has red makeup on his nose and around his mouth, as if he was eating something bloody. That's odd. And in 1988, they put out an ad of the clown Ronald McDonald and kids dancing around with several pairs of red shoes. These red shoes have no bodies attached to them. They're just dancing red shoes. And at the end of the ad, the kids actually jump into the red shoes and they start flying. Which actually reminded me a lot of that story that we read at the beginning of the episode that Hans Christian Andersen had written. It's very odd how similar that ad and that story were. I did find a recording that after the elites eat and drink what they want from the kids, they torture and kill. Then they grind up the rest and turn it into sausage and hamburger, and McDonald's sells it. I have a recording of this. The quality isn't great, but I'm going to play it here for you so you can hear what I heard.
Where we drain the blood and watch them die there. It's very similar to how we do the sacrifices that we do with the kosher butchering. And so we do that, and then we mix it with the Passover bread. And so we eat the blood of our enemies. And the bodies, we're not cannibals. So what we do is we take those, because we can make some shekels, and we give them to the slaughterhouses. And those are pounds and pounds and pounds of meat that we grind up in the sausage and the hamburger. And that's why we made those the most popular things, sausage for breakfast and hamburger for lunch. And so all the goyim out there are really eating their children. And even when we say this outright and tell you people, you don't believe it. So that's your problem.
Anyway, so the fact that I Googled this is the first thing that popped up really made me think about the Disney's Frozen episode. So they named the movie Frozen so that when people looked up, like Disney's Frozen or Disney Frozen, the theory about Walt Disney having his head frozen when he died wouldn't be the first thing that popped up. In fact, all these things about the movie now popped up. So the same thing is happening here. When I looked up the Red Shoe Club, the first thing that pops up is this Red Shoe Society. And under membership requirements, it says, quote, "You'll share the Red Shoe Society with your friends. It's not a secret society after all." And when you scroll down to the sponsors of the Los Angeles Ronald McDonald House, you see that the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce is in the top row. For reference, by the way, McDonald's is in the third row of sponsors. In one of the videos that I watched for this episode, the guy that was doing the video was talking about how Alexander Soros, the son of George Soros, had his own shoe brand and he sold red shoes. And that he even posted on Instagram wearing the shoes that he sells with the caption, "The Devil's Heaven." Now, I couldn't verify this information, but I did find something else really interesting. Alexander Soros is now engaged to Huma Abedin. Huma used to be married to Anthony Weiner. Anthony Weiner went to prison for exchanging nudes with minors. So she definitely knows the people that run in those circles, and hold on. Let's back it up a little bit more than that. Outside of her marriage to Anthony Weiner, who was a freaking pedophile himself, she was working with the Clintons. She's literally Hillary Clinton's aide, and she's been Hillary Clinton's aide for a long time. You know who else works with Hillary Clinton? The Podesta brothers. And we've talked about the Podesta brothers over and over. They are implicated in Pizzagate. They are implicated in Madeleine McCann's disappearance and probably murder. And we talked about it in her episode last week that Tony Podesta, John Podesta's brother, who is a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., by the way, who rubs shoulders with some of the most powerful people in the country, he is in many pictures wearing red shoes himself. This guy is constantly wearing red shoes. He is constantly around all these people. You know that him and John Podesta, whose emails were actually leaked for Pizzagate, those two are in this thing with Jeffrey Epstein and with all these kids, the Pizzagate stuff, the Clintons, they're all in it together. So you're telling me that Huma isn't connected with that? And you know that the Soros family is like deep in ties with the Democratic Party anyway. And I'm not trying to get political here, whether it's like the right or the left. That's not the point. The point is that Washington, D.C. and the elites or the politicians in our country are so corrupt that they're killing our children. That's what's happening here. And then they're going to wear red shoes to show us all, or they're going to have a black eye to show us all. They're going to call it pizza. How many interviews have I watched Hillary Clinton talk about her favorite food being pizza, or her daughter saying, my mom eats too much pizza? You're telling me that that's not code for something? Why is she always talking about pizza? Children love pizza and they don't even talk about it that much. And you're telling me that she hasn't had better food in her life? Like maybe she likes crab or a good steak. Nope, pizza. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there because I get so frustrated that there's so many connections to this. And then everyone's like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. It's weird, really odd. It's really coincidental then. Because Hollywood also references red shoes way too much. So we have the movie, The Man with One Red Shoe, that Tom Hanks was in the 80s. Which, like, don't get me started about Tom Hanks because that guy is, like, super shady. And I should do just a whole episode on Tom Hanks by himself. But this movie is about a man who becomes a target of a CIA investigation over drug smuggling. And we can't forget about the ruby red slippers in The Wizard of Oz. They're like slippers and they have like one strap over them. In The Wizard of Oz, theirs are very glittery. All the red shoes that we're talking about are not glittery because we have like some artwork, right? So Ashley Olsen, who, imagine that, a child actress right there. So she married an artist. This artist does a lot of art depictions with red shoes. Like one of his exhibits was like shoe shelving with nothing but red shoes or different varieties of shoes, but they're all the same color red on each of the shelves. Which I thought was like a very odd like art piece to begin with, but why would he pick this color red too? Strange. And there are several odd pictures of kids with their hands behind their backs wearing only a shirt and underwear and red shoes. And these pictures aren't like photographs. They're more like paintings or drawings, but they are very eerie. And these actually, these might have come from Epstein Island, I think. I don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure. But there's the picture of the kids. They're kind of like sitting in a circle. They're on like stools, wearing their shirt, their underwear, with their hands behind their backs. Then there's another picture of children, same artist probably. And these kids are sitting on the edge of an empty pool is what it looks like. And they're also wearing red shoes. It looks like the exact same artist. And then it looks like, again, the exact same artist did a picture of Bill Clinton sitting in a chair in what looks like the White House. And he's wearing a blue dress with his legs draped over the side of the chair with red high heels on. It's just like very odd that all these, it looks like the exact same artist drew all three of these pictures. And they all have red shoes in them. And these red shoes that these children are wearing in the pictures, those shoes have been photographed on royal children for decades. I mean, William's seen wearing those shoes. Harry's seen wearing those shoes. Charlotte's seen wearing those shoes. Some of the other kids I couldn't identify. I don't know all the royal children, but there's at least 3 or 4 other kids that have been seen wearing these exact red shoes with a little strap over them. And of course, you have Christian Louboutin shoes that come with red bottoms. And these red bottoms, these shoes are a status symbol to wear because of how expensive they are. I mean, I went to their website and they range from $350 to $13,000 for these shoes. And this is a clever way to hide the Red Shoe Club affiliation because most women don't want to be seen wearing like red loafers. It's not really like a cute style, but they will be seen wearing red bottom stilettos. Definitely goes with a dress better than red loafers like men are wearing. And of course, you can't forget the fact that Old Town Road rapper Lil Nas X modified a sneaker to be Satan shoes. So these were like modified Nikes, and they were black with pentagram charms and drops of human blood injected into the soles. Because you know how the soles have like air pockets? They injected human blood into those air pockets. Of course, Nike denied all involvement with the designing or manufacturing of the shoe and allegedly sued the designer of the shoes. But it's really weird because these shoes went on mass market until they were sued and got taken away, right? But just how many times you look around and maybe you don't even notice it unless you knew this conspiracy. A lot of people are like, oh, neat. There's a picture of a bunch of guys standing around wearing red shoes. We talked about that last week in Madeline McCann's episode. It definitely makes you wonder if giving Madeline to the Red Shoe Club was like an initiation for her father to become like one of these elites, to get raised up, you know, like maybe this was something that they had to endure. Because when you watch the videos or like the interviews, Jerry and Katie, like they're so blank faced. And I know that I talked about it last week in the episode, like we don't know what would happen if one of our kids went missing or disappeared. We don't know how he would react. But the fact that they're just like sitting there like, we didn't do anything to our child. That's it. Like, are you kidding me? No, like, please help us find her. We need to look for her. We like get the word out. Nothing. They had like no urgency to their message. They had no emotion on their faces. Like nothing. I don't know. I'm a very emotional person, so maybe that's something that I would do that maybe they wouldn't do. But the fact of the matter is, they're up to no good, and they're putting it right in our faces. So, until next week, my friends, stay skeptical, and I will see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Valaha, for our awesome intro.